We are reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, second chapter, text number 34 and 35. Text number 34. Akirtim chapiputani kata yeshyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakirtir maranat atirichyate. Akirtim, infamy. Cha, also. Api, over and above. Bhutani, all people. Katayashyantim, will speak. Te, of you. Avyayam, forever. Sambhavitasya, for a respectable man. Cha, also. Akirti, ill fame. Maranat, than that. Atirichyate, becomes more. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than that. Purport. Both as friend and philosopher to Arjuna, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjuna's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield before the battle even begins, people will call you a coward. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you do better to die in the battle. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than that. So you should not flee for fear of your life. Better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjuna to die in the battle and not withdraw. So we're supposed to read text number 35 too? Yes? Bhaya drana duparatam mam shante tvam maharataha yesham chattam bahumato bhutva yatsyasi lagavam. Translation. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Purport. Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that the great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Om Ajnana Timidandasya Jnanam Janasalakaya Chakshodannamritam Yanam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitannamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupakadam Hayam Dadati Sabadantigam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishagan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivajari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. After Arjuna was not ready to fight, seeing his relatives, his Gurujan, his spiritual masters, Bhishmadev, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, he was not ready to fight. It is mentioned in the scriptures that in regards to the Gurujan, the spiritual master, the elders, the superior persons, one should always be very gentle towards them. One should be very respectful in consciousness. One should speak very respectfully. Even if one has some doubts, then one may express that doubt to the senior person, but in a very humble way. Even it is mentioned usually with that was previously the system with having some straw between the teeth, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. In this way one should approach the seniors, the Gurujan. So humble in attitude and respectful, speaking sweetly and softly, inquiring from them about what to do and what not to do. And then with the body offering obeisances, respectful obeisances. So but here he was facing these great personalities, his spiritual masters, and he was supposed to fight with them. Not with words, but with arrows and bow, ready to kill them. So he was thinking, how this is possible? That I cannot do. So therefore he was ready to leave the battlefield. Out of compassion, thinking, and out of respect, how I can do that? So better let me go to the forest and give up that desire to win or to enjoy the kingdom, if you have to fight against the superiors, against the relatives. So actually Arjuna is a pure devotee, as we know, and he was humble, respectful, but he was powerful and strong. But here he was expected now to fight. That was actually Krishna's desire. And ultimately the jiva has to do what Krishna wants, not what he wants, not what he thinks. So but he has to do what Krishna wants, so he has to understand what Krishna wants. And if one is not able to know, then one will approach those who know, that is the spiritual master. So therefore after, it is explained in the beginning of the second chapter, first he was not ready to fight, but then after he he accepted Krishna's guidance because he knew that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Bande Jagadgurum, Krishna Bande Jagadgurum is the Jagadguru, Adi Guru. So he was ready to Shishyasteham, Saranam Prapannam, I'm surrendering unto you, I'm your disciple. Although they were related to each other, they were best friends. But here he understood that I have to surrender Krishna, I have to surrender to Krishna. So then Krishna is explaining to him very nicely, systematically. First of all, explaining to him that we are not this body. Dehenusmin yatha dehe kaumaram jauram jara tatha dehanta prapte derastatra namoyate. So the jiva, the spirit soul, is changing from boyhood to youth to old age, and then similarly at the time of death entering into another body. And then is explaining that happiness and distress are coming in this world and one has to tolerate. And he's giving long explanation about the soul and that the soul is permanent. So there's no need to worry about the warriors on the other side, even if they are killed. There's only the body, which is anyway meant to be destroyed sooner or later. So but you should execute your duty, you should do your duty, and you're a kshatriya. Kshatriya means he has to fight. He has to fight against wrongdoers, against injustice. So that's the duty of the kshatriya. So it has to be done. And then, so after that, so then he finally also tells him in these verses here, that because Arjuna, he gave various arguments why he should not fight. And then, so step by step, Krishna is explaining, systematically is explaining to Krishna why he should fight. And here, as Prabhupada is saying, that is the final judgment from the Lord to Arjuna, that he should fight even if he has to die in a battle. And it is explained in the scriptures. So there is a glorious death for a kshatriya, is to die on the battlefield. And so for the kshatriya there is no loss in the fight. Either he wins, if he wins then wonderful. And usually then he will get the opposing party's wealth. So when two parties were there, two kings, and one is defeating the other, and then he will take all the possessions. And if he loses and if he dies, that is explained, then he may go to the heavenly planets. Because that is the duty of the king, of the warriors, of the kshatriyas. They have to fight. Of course, other duties are there, but the fighting is there to correct some situation and to show their superiority, or to show that they're right, or of course then a kshatriya, he has to take care of, or the king has to take care of the kingdom, palan poshan praja, he has to take care of the citizens in the kingdom, the praja, and whatever they need he has to supply to them. So it is a great responsibility. And so the kshatriya is not supposed to simply give up this responsibility. And as explained here in these two verses, if one is respected, like Arjuna, he was very much respected. But if he is then deciding to leave the battlefield, so then people, they will say he's a coward. And they will not think, as explained in the second verse, that and in a purport by Prabhupada, people, they will not think that, oh, you left, that he left because out of compassion, because great warriors were there, his Gurujan were there, therefore he was a very thoughtful and considerate, and he didn't want to fight against his Gurujan, the elders, therefore he just left the battlefield out of respect, or that he was feeling compassion for his friends or for his relatives, so he did not want to fight. They will not think like that. They will think he's a coward. He just left the battlefield. So a warrior, so he should never leave the battlefield. Rather he should die. So otherwise, he will be dishonored. Everyone will speak ill of him. And that is as explained here. And that is easily understood. If one is a respectable person and then if one is dishonored, that is very painful. And therefore it is explained that is worse than that. For a respectable person. So Krishna very systematically he tried to convince Arjuna that he should fight against the Kauravas, even against his relatives, some of his relatives, against his superiors. Because actually one has to follow dharma, and the real dharma, as even Krishna says, sarva dharmam parijajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. So that is to do what Krishna wants. Anukulina Krishna anuchilanam bhaktir uttamam. So different kinds of dharma are there. One is the nitya dharma, sanatan dharma, the eternal dharma, vastav dharma, the real dharma, paro dharma, the superior dharma. That is to do what Krishna wants. That is to satisfy Krishna. That is to surrender to Krishna. That is the real dharma of the living entity. So dharma means religion. It also means the constitutional possession of the living entity. Jivera sopoi krishnera nittadas. So the constitutional possession of the living entity is to serve Krishna, is to surrender to Krishna, is to satisfy Krishna. That is real dharma, vastav dharma. That is the eternal dharma, the eternal religion, nitya dharma of the living entity, service to Krishna. And that is the relationship between the living entity and the supreme entity, the supreme personality of Godhead. That is a loving exchange based on service, in loving reciprocation. And Krishna is the master and the living entity is the servant. What is it? Ishwar arasapavritya. The only Ishwar, that is Krishna. The only master, that is Krishna. Everyone else is servant. And the other dharmas are there. So according to Vana ashram, one has to act, one has to be in one Vana and in one ashram. So the four Vanas are there, the labor class, the Shudras, the Vaishyas, mercantile man or businessman, and those who are taking care of the land and the cows, and then the Kshatriyas, the soldiers, the kings, the administrators, and then the Brahmanas, the teachers, those who are worshipping the Lord, those who are performing sacrifices. So one has to be in one Varna, and then one ashram. Brahmachari, a celibate student, then Grihastha, householder, and at one point one has to renounce material life or the household life, the comforts, and then dedicate oneself fully to the service of the Lord. Vanaprast, vanprasthan, going towards the forest, means giving up all opulences of the household life, all comforts of the household life, and live very simple. Simple living, high thinking, thinking about the Supreme Lord, trying to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And then sannyas, that is for those who are highly advanced, then they become the teachers also. They're completely given up material life and they're fully dedicated with body, mind and words and the service of the Lord. So, but that is actually pertaining to the body, Vana Ashram. But it is there, since we are in this body, we have this body, so we have to engage the body in a certain way. So, but that is not Nitya Dharma. Nitya Dharma refers to the soul. And everything else is called Naimitika Dharma. That is the occasional duties, because that may change. The Nitya Dharma is eternal. The living entities, relationship with Krishna is eternal. The service is eternal towards Krishna in one of the 5 relationships with Krishna. Shantadasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. And that is permanent because it is related with the Supreme Lord and the relationship of the living entity, the eternal relationship. That is permanent. Sthai bhav, this permanent mood, ecstasy, a relationship. Whereas on the material realm with this body, for the embodied being, so that may change. In one life a man, next life a woman. Or if one is sinful, then a dog or a hog. Or then if one is spying, going to the heavenly planets, but then has to come down again. One time a Shudra, then a Vaishya, maybe a Kshatriya and a Brahmana. In different lifetimes, that is changing. Even in the one lifetime, he may change. Sometimes those who are born in Brahmani family but they are not doing the duties of a Brahmana, then they become just like a Kshatriya. Or we can see sometimes Vaishya. Even here many Bengalis are here, born in Brahmana families. They're riding the rickshaw and they're even showing, I am a Brahmana, showing the Brahman thread. But he's not a Brahmana, he's pulling the rickshaw. Then becomes like a Shudra. So that may change. So, one is first a brahmachari, then one may enter grihastashram, then is a grihasta, then entering vanaprasthashram or sannyas, so that is changing. So these are changing the naimitika, the occupational duties or the secondary duties. So they are changing, they are not permanent. And then other dharmas are there, like Niti Shastra is there, the moral codes are there, and that we have to follow too. That is important. But it is secondary, it's Gauna karma, Gauna dharma, secondary dharma. And that has to be given up, Krishna. I told Arjuna. And that is understood, that should be given up, and one has to do what Krishna wants. And then Krishna is satisfied, and then the jiva, the living entity, is satisfied. So, Krishna very mercifully explained to Arjuna, very systematically, explaining to him what he should do, that he should fight. And rather dying on the battlefield than leaving the battlefield. But then Krishna is so merciful, he is explaining to him very nicely. And then throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, and then in the 18th chapter towards the end, and he has explained so about karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga and bhakti yoga. You have to do your duty, karma yoga, but that should be connected to the Lord. Jnana, you have to acquire knowledge. You may even do meditation, but it is not for this age, and it is not for you, Krishna told Arjuna. You cannot be a yogi. It will be difficult for you. You are a kshatriya, it's against your nature. You may go to the forest, but you will not be happy there. You don't have the consciousness and the body of a yogi. You cannot do that. You will not be happy. You will not be successful. And then bhakti-yoga. So that is explaining then to Arjuna. You fight, but you think of me. You do your duty, but you think of me. And then that becomes bhakti, devotional service, if Krishna is in the center. And if it is done with love and affection, priti purvak. And that should be done. So very nicely he has explained everything. And so he has given his judgment. But he's not forcing Arjuna, you must do this. No. But he's telling him, it is your choice. In the end, the 18th chapter. So I've explained to you what I feel, but then you do as you like. It is your ichcha, your wish. I'm not forcing, Krishna is not forcing the living entity to surrender. He's just explaining to the living entity, you're supposed to serve me, but I'm not forcing you. It is up to you. It is up to the living entity. He can serve Krishna or he can be in Maya. So that is his choice. So at every step, actually the living entity has to make the choice to surrender to Krishna. In the conditioned state, the living entity is completely Maya and is always trying to please his own senses. Atmendriya tripti. But then the devotee, when the jiva, when he is fortunate by the mercy of the Lord and the spiritual master, the devotees, the Vaishnavas, when he comes to his senses, when he comes to understand what is the real, what is his real possession, what is to be done, so when he is engaged in devotional activities, Krishnendra Priti, for the satisfaction of Krishna's senses, and then he can advance towards perfection. And that is in the material world. So the whole purpose is to bring the living entities to the understanding that they're supposed to serve Krishna. Because by nature they're the eternal servants of Krishna. And then the goal of life is Atma Sakshaka, to actually realize Krishna's transcendental form, qualities and pastimes, and one's own form and relationship with Krishna. That is the goal of life. So it is a gradual step, a gradual process, and one has to go step by step, try to go higher and higher. So the living entity, at every step, he has to make the conscious step of the decision to surrender to Krishna at every step. Actually, at every second practically, we can see the consciousnesses and the mind and the senses. So in the material world, the conditioned soul is doing everything for his own pleasure, but the sadhaka is trying to serve Krishna, trying to think of Krishna, trying to engage his senses in Krishna's service. So then at every second someone has to decide and one has to surrender to Krishna. Of course, if one is engaged in devotional service, then the mind and the senses are controlled, but at the same time still, decision is there and that the mind may think of something which is not favorable. And then one has to control the mind, one has to bring the mind back under control at the lotus feet of Krishna. So consciously we have to do that. And so the sadhaka, he will see that it is not so easy to be always focused, to be always thinking of Krishna's lotus feet, to be always thinking of devotional service, to control the senses, all the senses always, by engaging them in devotional activities. Because in the conditioned state, so the mind and the senses, they are almost automatically running towards the sense objects. So many distractions are there. But one has to make a conscious effort to control the mind and senses all the time. And in order to be successful, one has to be in the association of the devotees. And one has to be under the guidance of the spiritual master. And one has to try to be always engaged in devotional activities in various ways. With the body, engage in activities and trying to glorify all the senses. Should be engaged in giving pleasure to Krishna's senses. And the mind should be fixed at Krishna's lotus feet. The consciousness has to be absorbed in thinking about Krishna, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, the process of devotional service, or thinking about the devotees of the Lord who are fully engaged in the devotional service. And then also one has to pray. Then one may be successful in one's attempt to be completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. That is also important, because with our own endeavor, by our own strength, it will not be possible to overcome the external energy. Daiviyesha gunamai mamamaya mayamitam tarantite. So it is difficult to overcome this external energy. But those who are surrendered to Krishna, they can, by the mercy of the Lord, overcome this external energy. And surrender starts with taking shelter of the spiritual master, Gurupad Ashray. And as Krishna says also, Tadvidi paripatane pariprasne seve upadekshanti deganam gyaninas tattva darshanaha. And then one may be successful. And by doing that, then actually the devotees, they become glorious. The devotees who are fully engaged in devotional service, their fame is actually everlasting. Like you can see the previous acharyas. So even now they are glorified, like Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur. And they will be glorified after thousands of years even. And because Krishna's pastimes are going on actually eternal in the material world, from one universe to another universe. And the Mahaprabhu's pastimes are there. And then the associates of the Lord are there. And they are just like the Lord is always glorified. Similarly, the devotees also glorified. Like Arjuna, even after 5,000 years is glorified. Whereas other people, they may be famous for some time. Like in India, cricket star, or in the West, football star. Maybe when they are 20, they become great players, then for 10 years. And then maybe 5-6 years more, they will be remembered, but then they're gone. And after 20, 30 years, 40 years, nobody will remember them. But the devotees are remembered always, the great devotees, the pure devotees. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to become glorious, to take all the credit. He was even telling him also that you just be the instrument, nimitta matra, because by Krishna's desire things are actually happening ultimately. But we can be put an instrument in Krishna's hands, in the will of the Lord. And then one can become glorious by the Lord's mercy. So he told him, you just fight, and then you will get the glory. So, but otherwise, if one is not surrendered to Krishna, then one cannot get this respect, this glory. Of course, a devotee does not even want to be accepted as a glorious person. He doesn't want to be glorified. He simply wants to serve Krishna, pure devotee. And he remains humble. And if he becomes glorious, if he becomes successful, he doesn't take the credit. He will think, oh, this is the Lord's mercy, this is my spiritual master's mercy, this is the Vaishnava's mercy. He doesn't keep the credit. He gives it to the Lord. He becomes glorious, but he doesn't take the credit. He offers it to the feet of his spiritual master, to the feet of Krishna. But if there's some difficulty, and then he doesn't blame either the Supreme Lord, but he thinks it is my misfortune. It is due to my shortcomings that I'm not successful. And he takes the responsibility. So that is the nature of a devotee. And so Krishna is urging Arjuna to do his duty and actually to do what he wants to do. So Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight, so he's urging him, but he's not forcing him. He's giving him the choice. So all the living entities, they have the choice. They can do what Krishna wants, or they can be independent of Krishna. If they do what Krishna wants, then they are successful, then they may be glorified, they may be happy. If they are not, then whatever is their position, it is impermanent, it is not relevant, it is insignificant, and they cannot be truly happy. And Krishna ultimately here is not just speaking to Arjuna, but the Bhagavad-Gita is spoken for all the conditioned souls. But again here Arjuna, so he's the instrument. And through to Arjuna, so this knowledge has been given to the conditioned souls. So they may come to their senses. So they may engage in devotional service. So they may try to advance more and more. So they may become perfect in their spiritual life. So Krishna is the Supreme Lord, is most intelligent, is most compassionate, thoughtful, merciful, and when Krishna is doing something, then so many purposes are served. So here, from one point of view, from one angle of vision, he is urging Arjuna to surrender, to fight, and then also, ultimately, he is trying to urge all the conditioned souls, those who are little fortunate to take up spiritual life, to take up devotional service, so they may surrender also and attain perfection by surrendering to him. So Prabhupada is explaining that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna as a friend and philosopher. So Krishna is the best friend of all the living entities. And of course he is the greatest philosopher. Sara Aishwarya Purna Bhagavan is complete. Krishna is perfect and complete. He has unlimited opulences. 6 of them are mentioned as famous for this. Is most beautiful, Krishna. Of course, he's most beautiful when he's in Braj, when he's with the gopis, with his friends, because they have the most love for him. And because of that, Krishna is most satisfied. That is increasing his love. That is increasing his pleasure. That is increasing his beauty. So Krishna in Braj is most beautiful. But even in Dwarka, even on the battlefield, is very beautiful, Krishna. Most beautiful. Even though he was 100 years old or 125 years old when he was giving up, or he was becoming aprakat, when he disappeared from this world, he was 125 years, but still he was looking young, just like a fresh youth of 25 years. Very beautiful, most beautiful. So his beauty is unparalleled, most beautiful person. And then the strength, Krishna is most strong. So he lifted Govardhan hill, a big hill, with the little finger of his left arm. And Prabhupada, so one time somebody asked Prabhupada, can Krishna create a hill which is so heavy that he cannot lift it? And Prabhupada said, yes, of course he can. He can make such a heavy and big hill that he cannot lift it. But still, if he wants, he can lift it, and he lifts it. So he can do the impossible possible. He's most strong. No one can defeat him. Except this pure devotee is defeated by love. Is ajit, is unconquerable. But he becomes jit, he becomes conquered by the love of his devotees, especially the Brijabasis. They can control Krishna. No one else. Only the Brijabasis. And then Krishna, although he is the strongest, most beautiful, most knowledgeable, so the greatest philosopher, all the knowledge is coming from him. He is the Adi Guru, actually, speaking to Lord Brahma, speaking to Lord Shiva. And in his expanded form, he is giving this transcendental knowledge. He is the greatest scholar, greatest philosopher. And everything belongs to him, most opulent, most rich. Everything belongs to Krishna. Bhuktarangyak tapasam sarvaloko maheshwaram. And at the end also is most renounced, most humble. Always the lord of everyone. But he becomes the chariot driver of Arjuna. Very humble position, most humble. Who can do that even in material world? A rich person usually has his car and he has a driver, and he will never think of driving. He will think, well, what other people will think if I'm driving the car? The driver has to do that. I cannot do that. But Krishna is not thinking, he's becoming the chariot driver of Arjuna. So humble. And then after the battlefield, the Rajasuya sacrifice was there. And he was there welcoming all the guests and washing the feet, especially of the seniors. Most humble and ready to do whatever Yudhishthira wanted him to do. Sometimes he was bringing messages here and there. Most humble, most renounced. Dancing with millions of gopis. But then he left all of them. Of course he was running behind Radharani, that's another thing. But still, so many other women were there. Beautiful gopis, most beautiful. But then he left all of them. And then he was with Radharani, but then he left her also. So, most wonderful personality, Krishna. So, and if we are surrendering to Krishna, then we can experience this transcendental pleasure. We can experience his beauty, his opulences, his knowledge, his humility. So So therefore ultimately, so we have to, in order to understand Krishna, of course also, Krishna is saying, you take shelter of the spiritual master. It is mentioned in all the scriptures. Krishna is Vishaya Vigraha, is the object of love, is Prananath, is the life of the devotees, the life of the devotees, is everything for his devotees. And then the Ashraya Vigraha is there, the abode of love, those who have love for Krishna. So the spiritual master has love for Krishna, the associates of the Lord, and the most exalted of all, the personalities who have love for Krishna is Srimati Radharani. But first we take shelter of the spiritual master, and then ultimately we are aspiring to take shelter of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, who is the embodiment of the highest form of love towards Krishna, Mahabhav Sarupini. So, and then therefore the devotees, as Prabhupada said, it is mentioned in scriptures, they are calling out to Radha, Srimati Radharani, they take shelter of Srimati Radharani, and by her mercy, by her grace, we can actually serve Krishna properly. So she is the pleasure potency of the Lord. So she is the abode of love. And so in order to serve Krishna, we have to take shelter of the Ashraya Vigraha, the abode of love. First taking shelter of the spiritual master, and then ultimately Srimati Radharani. And then we can properly serve Krishna and experience the wonderful loving exchange. And so a devotee who is able to take shelter properly, so he becomes the most fortunate, the most happy, the most glorious person, as explained Chaitanya Charitamrita also. What is the greatest fame? That is to be known. That is one who is known as a devotee of the Lord. The devotees are most famous, and that is everlasting. So devotee means one who is doing what Krishna wants. So Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight, so he had to fight. And going to the forest, that is not what Krishna wanted. So therefore he told him also. And then, but he told him, you can decide now. And of course Krishna is a pure devotee. Arjuna is a pure devotee, and he was fighting then, and he became glorious. And so we should try to do what Krishna wants. We should surrender to Krishna, then we'll be happy, we'll be successful, we'll be glorious. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any comments or any questions? Yes.
You were speaking that Krishna never forces Arjuna to fight.
Yes.
But he is convincing him, he said, I don't want to fight. After convincing, then he understands, now I have to fight.
Yes.
So convincing is not forcing?
No, convincing is not forcing. He's speaking. Krishna convinced him, yeah, but he told him, you do as you like. He's saying, at the end of the 18th chapter, right? You do as you like. So that means he's not forcing, but he convinced him. Like that's what we have to do also. I mean, did somebody force you to surrender, Prabhuji? Prabhuji, did somebody force you to surrender to Krishna? You have to surrender. Did they force you? They convinced you, right? So we have to try convince other people also. Not forcing. We cannot do by force. You cannot force. Of course, in the temple, sometimes they tell the brahmacharis or anybody, you have to do to Mangalatik, you have to go to Mangalatik. So some kind of force sometimes is there for the children. You have to do this. But then ultimately it has to come from your own heart, and you have to want to go to Mangalatik. You have to, as a child, you must do what the parents say, but you should then do willingly. But as a parent, sometimes the parents have to put some force, the spiritual master sometimes has to put some force there, because the children, otherwise they will go the other way. But those who are more mature, you don't have to force them. You have to explain to them, and then you have to try to convince them. But you don't have to force, you're not forcing. An expert spiritual master will not force, he will convince the disciple. Expert manager, devotee, he will convince the devotees to do what is supposed to be done. They will not force.
Convincing also, we understand that Arjuna, he doesn't want to fight.
Yes.
When he was convinced.
Then he was.
Understood that the convincing is that he is asking him to that you have to fight, because if you don't fight, you will get a disfame, you will get defame, or
Yes.
you will go to
Yes.
or something like that. So when I understand if I am not fighting, I am going to this one, so better I fight, because
Yes.
he is asking me to fight.
Yes.
So he is convinced, after convincing he is fighting. Before convincing he is asking so many questions.
Yes.
Why I should do this and why I should
Yeah.
do this.
Yes, and so Krishna convinced him. Yeah.
So after convincing he said, now
Now I'm ready to fight. Yeah. Yes.
So similarly, when we convince a person to become Krishna conscious, so he asks so many questions.
Yes, right. And then we have to try to convince him.
Can I chant 16 rounds? I will chant 1 round. Then
Uh-huh.
start 2 rounds. Then like this, you have to take 16 rounds. If you force them, then
They will not do. No.
They go away. They say,
Yeah. Yes.
you
Yes.
people are forcing. So we should allow them.
Right. Yes. We should do just like Krishna does. We should convincingly.
So I drink tea, I take onion garlic.
Mm.
Or you have to leave that one. If you don't leave, you don't get anything.
Mm.
So if they are convinced, okay, you come later on, you can start
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things,
Yes.
then
Yes.
you can work yours.
Yes. Right.
Sometimes devotees, they say, no, this one, otherwise you
Mm.
cannot, this one, you cannot wear kantimala because waiting for
Yes.
So these things we shouldn't say, whatever they desire, we should allow
Mm.
them to give their desires, and slowly they will come to
Yes. So we have to become expert,
yeah,
just like Krishna.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
You said what we do should please Krishna. Whatever
Yes.
we do. So sometimes you have to make a small decision or a big decision in life, and things are happening. So how do you know exactly in that moment what will please Krishna?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Sometimes it's difficult. In the conditioned state, the pure devotee always knows what Krishna wants. For him is no problem. But in the conditioned state, sometimes the sadhaka may not know what is pleasing to Krishna. Shall I do now this or shall I do that? Somebody may not know in the conditioned state. But the thing is, the motive should be there to want to please Krishna. So the motive should be there, I should want to, the consciousness should be there, I want to please Krishna. You may not know what actually Krishna wants, but it doesn't matter. But you should have the consciousness, I should do what Krishna wants. And sometimes you're not sure, and then better not to be in the mental platform and think 10 times, what shall I do? Shall I do this or shall I do that? You pray to Krishna, or if the spiritual master is there, then you can just ask him, and he will tell you. But if he's not present, you cannot reach him, then you have to make a decision. But then what you should do, you can pray to Krishna, Krishna, I don't know exactly what I should do. Shall I go left or right? I'm not exactly sure, but I want to please you, so please guide me so that I do the right thing. So you should do like this. You may not know, but then you pray to Krishna, Krishna, I don't know what I should do. I cannot understand. But I want to please you, so please guide me so I do the right thing. Like this. So you pray in this way, and then you go one direction, and then Krishna may help you to do the right thing in a conditioned state. But in purified consciousness, then the pure devotee is always doing what Krishna wants. He will understand. He's guided by Krishna always. But if you are not yet so advanced, then you just try your best, and you pray to Krishna to help you to make the right decision, so that he's satisfied. That's all. Very simple. And no need to be too mental and now what shall I do, what Krishna wants me to do. We should think, but then we have to make a decision, but we should pray. So have the proper consciousness the motive, and we can express to Krishna, I don't know exactly, but let me be, by your grace, let me do what you want. And then you do what you feel, what would be pleasing to Krishna. That's all. Okay? Anything else?
Just like we have, thank you for giving such a wonderful Krishna consciousness lecture. Just like we have the Prabhupada house, who is disciple, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. We are having his Vyasa Puja on the 24th.
Vyasa Puja, is it Vyasa Puja or Disappearance Day? I think it's Disappearance Day. Disappearance Day on 24th, yeah.
Something to add about His Holiness?
Something to add about His Holiness? Well, on the 24th we will discuss. And he's all we can say is a very wonderful disciple of Prabhupada who did a lot of preaching, and he was a great speaker. He gave wonderful classes, and he was able to convince people to come to Krishna consciousness, and he was helping many devotees in their Krishna consciousness. So all respect is to be given to him, and yes, and more you will hear on 24th. Okay? Hare Krishna. Okay. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki